The stars burned like dying embers against the void, and I awoke to the sound of my own breathing, mechanical, hollow, unending. Each inhalation rasped through filters and steel, a whisper of servos and pneumatics that filled the silence of the chamber around me. I did not remember being born, nor dying, but I knew instinctively that I had done both. There was a time when breath meant life, now it meant control. I felt the cables grafted into my spine, the sacred oils of the Mechanicus still slick across my chest plate, and I understood that I was not in the galaxy I once ruled by fear. The priests called me Brother Vadarian, their voices trembling in a mix of reverence and unease as if they knew they had resurrected something that should have stayed buried. I could sense it, the hum of power coursing through my new body, the cold hunger of the armor that had claimed me. I was told that I had been found drifting in a void storm near the Eye of Terror, sealed within an ancient relic of the Horus heresy. They believed the Emperor himself had guided them to me, but I knew better. I could feel the Force, muted, fractured, yet alive, twisting faintly through this new reality like a dying current through broken circuitry. The dark side had followed me, clinging like ash to what was left of my soul. I remember little of the moments before my rebirth. Flashes of a world split by twin suns, a blade that bled red fire, a son's voice pleading in the smoke. Then obliteration, but here the gods of this galaxy had no need for redemption. They only demanded obedience. My first sight upon awakening was the iron skull of the chaplain, wreathed in incense and blue lightning. He placed his crozius upon my chest and whispered blessings to a corpse god I had never known. "Rise, Brother Vadarian," he said, "for you serve the Emperor now." The irony burned deeper than any wound. I had once served an emperor, one who demanded submission in the name of peace, and I had slaughtered billions for him. Now I was asked to do it again, in a new galaxy where faith replaced the Force, and fear was worshipped as devotion. Perhaps the two were never different at all. The Night Lords had claimed me. The 8th Legion, they called themselves, children of Nostramo, forged in terror and vengeance. Their armor was midnight blue, trimmed with lightning, their laughter sharp and predatory. I felt at home among them. They whispered that I was a relic, a warrior out of time, that my armor carried a machine spirit unlike any they had seen. When I moved, it hissed with a low growl, as if the armor itself was breathing with me. It was alive, or perhaps like me, too dead to know the difference. The first time I looked upon my reflection, I saw the union of two legacies of ruin, the polished black of my helm merging with the fanged visage of the Night Lords. The red lenses glowed like bleeding suns. I had become the shadow they dreamed of being, the monster in the dark given holy sanction. Training under the apothecarian was brief. They said my mind adapted faster than any initiate. I said nothing. The truth was, my mind had been broken long before they found me. They implanted memories of imperial war doctrine, of compliance and extermination, and I let them. It amused me to see their faith in order, their worship of death wrapped in ritual. Every time I knelt before the shrine of the Emperor, I felt the same emptiness I once felt before the dark side. No compassion, no light, only the cold assurance that power justifies itself. The Force was gone, but something lingered in its place, a void that fed on thought and fear. I could hear it whisper in the quiet moments between battle drills, a sound like breath through metal. You are not free. You never were. The first time they unsealed me from stasis, the world of Varnus Nime awaited, a heretic stronghold rebelling against the Imperium's tithes. It was a city of rust and dust, its spires cracked and burning, its people chanting the names of dark gods. The Night Lords took pleasure in the purge, descending like phantoms from the storm. I walked among them, my every step marked by the hiss of my respirator and the hum of my blade, a weapon I had forged from fragments of memory, a mimicry of my old saber, reforged in this galaxy's crude technologies. When it ignited, the heretics screamed that the warp itself had come for them. In that moment, I felt something familiar, a terrible serenity, a perfect silence before slaughter. The blade sang in my hand, its crimson light cutting through bodies and prayer alike. They called it witchcraft, I called it justice. But as the fires rose and the screams echoed into the endless dark, I began to see ghosts. Not of the dead, but of the living I had left behind. A boy with my eyes begging me to turn back. A woman, her arms outstretched in forgiveness I could never earn. Their images flickered like broken hollows across the smoke. The Night Lords saw only my efficiency, my brutality, and they exalted it. But I saw what they could not. The Force bleeding through the warp, reshaping their fear into something divine. For the first time, I realized that the dark side had found a new home here, in this galaxy ruled by madness. The warp was no different. It was the same storm given new names, the same hunger cloaked in faith. I felt its pull, familiar and intoxicating, whispering promises of dominion. The Emperor of Mankind was no savior. He was the same shadow I had once served by another name. That night, in the silence of my cell, I removed my helmet. The air was cold and metallic, tasting of ozone and decay. I stared at the respirator grafted to my jaw, the pale, scarred flesh beneath. My reflection in the armor's dark visor stared back, and for a moment I no longer knew who I was. Was I Anakin, Vader, Vidarian? The names no longer mattered. Only the voice that haunted me did, the one that whispered from the machine spirit itself. It spoke in static and fragments of binary and breath. You were never meant to serve. You were meant to rule. And in that whisper, I felt the truth resurface. I had not been reborn by accident. The Force, or whatever this galaxy called it, had dragged me here for a reason. The Emperor of Man had created his angels of death, and now, one of them remembered the old fire. As I knelt before the shrine again, I looked upon the golden visage of the Emperor's statue, its empty eyes glaring down with silent judgment. I could sense no soul within it, only the echoes of worship, the desperation of a species clinging to a corpse. And I laughed quietly, bitterly. Once I had built an empire upon the same lie. Now I lived within one. I whispered beneath my breath, the galaxy changes, but tyranny remains the same. My voice, metallic and hollow, vanished into the chanting halls. I closed my eyes and let the hum of the machine fill the void within me. Perhaps there was no redemption left, not in this world, not in any. But there was purpose. And purpose, I had learned, is enough to keep even the dead walking. In the darkness of the chapel, the servo lights flickered. I felt the armor shudder faintly, as if acknowledging my thoughts. Outside, thunder rolled across the fortress monastery, and I could hear the Night Lords preparing for another hunt. Somewhere in the distance, a servitor sang a hymn to the Omnissiah, its voice distorted and broken. I rose, each movement a quiet defiance against destiny. If this emperor demanded loyalty, he would have it. But he would never own me. I was forged by another darkness, one older and deeper than his throne could comprehend. I would serve for now, and when the time came, when the stars aligned and the veil between galaxies thinned once more, I would claim my own empire again. The galaxy would tremble beneath the breath of the machine. Chapter 2. The Emperor's chains, they called it assimilation, but it felt more like possession. My mind was a battlefield long before I joined the Imperium, yet the chaplains of the 8th Legion sought to claim it all the same. They chanted scripture as I knelt before the hololiths of the Codex Astartes, their voices droning through the incense smoke like the hum of a hive. Each word was a nail driven deeper into my soul. Obedience is loyalty. Faith is strength. The Emperor protects. I repeated the words aloud, but they meant nothing. They were lies wrapped in reverence, and I had heard their like before, in another life, under another master. Once, a republic had burned those words into the hearts of its soldiers. Now a dying Imperium did the same. I had crossed galaxies and death itself only to return to the same chains. The irony was cosmic, cruel, and beautiful. Yet beneath the surface, something else stirred. A hunger not my own. An ancient pulse running through the metal veins of my armor. I began to dream in static and blood. At night, when the others slept in stasis, I walked the corridors of the fortress monastery. The stone was old, carved with skulls and lightning bolts, but the shadows spoke. I heard whispers behind every reliquary, murmurs in binary that my implants could barely interpret. "You are not one of them," the voice hissed through the vox one night. I turned, my crimson eyes slicing through the dark. The corridor was empty, yet the voice persisted, low and mechanical, like a machine spirit speaking through a dying cogitator. "You are chosen. The Emperor's image is false." I froze, listening. It was the same voice I had heard in my chamber, the same static that haunted my dreams. But now it was louder, sentient, awake. The machine knew me. It was as if the armor itself remembered the Force, and through it the Force remembered me. I reached inward, searching for that ancient current I once commanded. The galaxy was silent, and yet, beneath the surface of reality, the warp trembled. The warp. I had studied its lore from the Mechanicum archives. They called it the Sea of Souls, the psychic echo of all sentient life. I called it by its true name, the Shadow of the Force. It was the same energy I had bent to my will, now stripped of balance and mercy. Here it was pure madness, an ocean of screaming spirits that fed the gods of chaos. When I first touched it, it recoiled, as if recognizing me. I felt it bleed into my thoughts, whispering old names: Vader, Chosen, Betrayer. It saw my crimes and loved them. The chaplain warned me of temptation, of demons that corrupt through pride. I said nothing. If the demons were real, then I was already one of them. What difference did another name make? They sent me into battle again soon after. This time the Night Lords were deployed to the planet Marnath, a shrine world defiled by the Word-bearers. It was said the traitor Marines had built an altar of flesh to summon their god. We descended under crimson lightning, our drop pods tearing through the ash storms like falling stars. I felt alive in the chaos. The old instincts returned: command, precision, control. The Vox crackled with orders, but I ignored them. I did not need guidance. The battlefield was my cathedral. Every explosion was a hymn, every scream a prayer. When I landed, the air was thick with the stench of blood and oil. Word-bearers chanted in low Gothic, their armor etched with runes that burned red as the warp tore open above them. I stepped forward, igniting my blade. Its crimson glow painted the ruins like the sunrise of a dying world. They came at me, roaring the names of their dark gods, and I cut through them like memories, brief, bright, and merciless. My brothers fought beside me, their laughter echoing across the Vox as they flayed the heretics. Yet amid the slaughter, I felt something else. A pull in the air, like gravity bending. The warp was alive here, reaching for me. I could feel it crawling along my armor, seeping into the cracks between steel and scar. And then I saw him, a word-bearer champion, his armor adorned with flayed scripture, his face hidden behind a skull mask. He carried a mace crackling with warp lightning. When our weapons met, the world split in two. The energy of the clash rippled across the ruins, and I saw visions, my past, my future, all bleeding together in an endless scream. He called out through the storm, "You reek of two galaxies, abomination." "What god do you serve?" His voice was deep, almost amused. I said nothing, only pressed harder, my blade inches from his throat. "Your soul is torn," he hissed. "You do not belong to this reality." I smiled behind the respirator. "Then neither do you." With one strike, I drove my blade through his chest. His body convulsed, the warp surging from him like blood, and I felt it flood through me. The Force, or the warp, or whatever this madness was, roared alive. For a heartbeat, I saw the galaxy as it truly was: infinite suffering, endless death, all bound together by one law: power. And in that moment, I understood. The Emperor's Imperium, the Sith Empire, the Chaos Gods, all of it was the same cycle, repeating across realities. The galaxy had no gods, only masters. After the battle, the chaplain found me standing among the corpses. My armor glowed faintly red, as though still burning from within. "You are blessed," he said. "The Emperor's fury flows through you," I almost laughed. If he knew what truly flowed through me, he would have burned me on the spot. The machine spirit whispered again, quieter now but constant. "You are not his servant. You are his reflection." I looked down at the fallen word-bearer and saw my own reflection in his cracked visor. Two monsters separated by belief, both slaves to the same eternal war. Back aboard the strike cruiser Noctis Requiem, I stood before the viewing deck as the planet burned below. The chaplain recited victory litanies beside me, but I barely heard him. My thoughts were elsewhere, on the warp, on the Force, on the Emperor's face carved in gold across every cathedral. I wondered if he had ever truly breathed, or if he too was just another corpse chained to machinery, kept alive by the worship of the desperate. I remembered my own master, long ago, kept alive by hatred and wires, and realized the truth that no one in this galaxy dared speak. The Emperor of mankind is a Sith by another name. The realization chilled me more than the void ever could. Perhaps I had not escaped my destiny at all. Perhaps I had simply changed uniforms. As the ship drifted through the cold dark, I reached out one last time, searching for the light I had buried long ago. It did not answer. Only the whisper came, soft and patient. "There is still a throne waiting." I turned from the window, feeling the hum of my armor sync with my pulse. I would play their game, for now. I would serve their emperor, fight their wars, wear their colors. But when the time came, when their faith failed and their gods fell silent, I would rise. The galaxy would kneel not before faith nor chaos, nor the corpse upon the throne, but before the one who remembered what true power felt like. Sleep had abandoned me long ago. The stasis pods offered no dreams, only cold preservation. Yet I still dreamed of Tatooine's twin suns, of sand beneath my feet, of a boy who once looked to the sky and believed he could change destiny. That boy was gone. What remained was his ghost, trapped in armor and oath. We were en route to the Halo of Eglisar, a derelict station adrift at the edge of the Segmentum Obscurus, where distress signals spoke of entire inquisitorial detachments vanishing into static. The Night Lords delighted in such missions. Haunted ruins, terrified mortals, the promise of slaughter. But I felt something deeper calling from that place. The warp itself trembled when our ship neared it, a distant vibration in the void, like the heartbeat of something immense. The chaplain called it a test of faith. I called it a warning. When we entered orbit, I saw the station through the viewing bay. It hung like a corpse in space, skeletal towers drifting among clouds of debris. Its architecture was imperial, but wrong. Angles that twisted the eye, corridors that led nowhere. The Vox hissed with faint whispers in hundreds of voices, all saying the same thing. He breathes beneath the throne. The words meant nothing to the others, but to me they pierced deep. Breathing, the sound of it had haunted me across galaxies. It was the only rhythm that survived death. As our drop pods launched, I heard my own respirator sync to that same cadence, and for the first time I felt fear. Not of the warp, not of death, but of recognition. Something on that station knew me. We landed in silence. The corridors were lit by flickering lumen strips, their walls lined with ossified remains of servitors fused into the metal. My brothers moved with confidence, their laughter echoing in the dark. But I could feel it, the air thick with psychic residue, the shadows pulsing with unseen eyes. My armor whispered through the Vox, "They are blind. You are not." I ignored it, though part of me knew it was right. As we advanced, we found the remnants of the inquisitorial team, half absorbed into the walls, their flesh stretched like parchment over rusted bulkheads. The chaplain recited rites of cleansing, but I barely listened. I could sense the force again, faint but alive, threading through the warp like a dying ember. It was coming from the center of the station. We reached the central sanctum hours later. There, in the heart of the halo, stood a massive throne of gold and iron. It was cracked and empty, yet the air around it shimmered with energy. The inscriptions on its base were not imperial. They were ancient, older than Terra. I stepped closer, and the temperature dropped. Frost gathered on my gauntlets as the whispers grew louder. "You have worn two faces," the voice said. "Both served thrones of ash." My brothers saw nothing, heard nothing. To them, it was just another ruin. But I saw, through the shimmer of the warp, a figure seated upon that throne. Not flesh, not machine, but light bent into form. It wore my armor, my mask, my breath. It was me. I staggered back. The apparition rose, its voice echoing through my mind with the calm weight of eternity. "You think yourself free, Vidarian. You think the Emperor's chains are not your own. Its movements were perfect mirrors of mine, but every breath you take is borrowed. Every war you fight is scripted. You are no warrior. You are the Force, trapped in armor, bound to repeat." I wanted to deny it, but deep within, I knew the truth. Across galaxies, I had been both slave and tyrant, student and master, hero and monster. Nothing had changed. Only the names. The Force, the Warp, the Emperor, the Dark Side, all the same face, endlessly reborn. The chaplain interrupted the vision, his Crozius slamming against the floor. "Purge this heresy," he shouted. "The station reeks of demonic lies." The Night Lords opened fire, their bolters shredding the walls. The throne cracked, light spilling like blood across the floor. But the vision did not fade, it multiplied. Every wall now reflected a version of me. The Sith Lord, the Astartes, the dying man on Mustafar, the child staring at twin suns. They spoke in unison. "You cannot kill what you are." The chaplain screamed litanies, the others fired blindly, but the bullets passed through illusions. The real enemy was within. The armor began to vibrate, its machine spirit merging with the psychic storm. I felt the force surge through me, unrestricted, raw, alive again. My brothers fell to their knees as the air convulsed. Bolts of crimson energy erupted from my gauntlets, tearing through the sanctum. The warp screamed, and for a moment I felt whole. When I awoke, the station was gone. Or perhaps we were. The Noctis Requiem floated among debris fields that glowed like dying embers. The chaplain was dead, his body fused to his armor. My brothers whispered that the warp storm had claimed him, that I had stood untouched amid the chaos, silent as death itself. I said nothing. Inside, I felt the same power coiled beneath my ribs, restrained but awake. The machine spirit purred like a living beast, and in its tone I heard pride. "You have seen," it whispered. "You understand now." I looked at the stars, cold, uncaring, endless, and realized that there was no escaping the cycle. The Sith sought dominion, the Emperor sought faith, the Chaos Gods sought devotion, but all were slaves to the same hunger, the will to control. And perhaps I was too. That night, as the ship drifted through the void, I stood before the viewport and deactivated my respirator. The air burned in my lungs, thin and sharp. For a brief instant, I felt alive again, not as a warrior, not as a god, but as a man. Then the pain came, sharp and searing, and I sealed the mask once more. The hum of the machine returned, steady, eternal. I whispered into the darkness, "If I am to be a weapon, then let me be the last one." The stars offered no answer, only the silence between them, vast and eternal, where gods and empires alike are forgotten. The galaxy did not sleep. It churned and burned and screamed beneath the boot of its own believers. I had walked among its corpses long enough to recognize the pattern. Faith turned to control, control turned to rot, and rot reborn as faith again. The Night Lords called it duty. I called it hunger. After the halo of Eglisar, the Inquisition branded us cursed, tainted by contact with the warp anomaly. Our cruiser was ordered to stand by for cleansing and interrogation. I knew what that meant: lobotomized servitors, repentance by flame, and perhaps the extermination of every soul aboard. The chaplain was dead, our librarian catatonic, and command fell to me. The others accepted it without question. Fear and awe are twins that obey easily. But I had no interest in loyalty. I wanted truth. And truth, I had learned, never comes freely in the Imperium of man. The Mechanicum Adepts came first. Clad in red robes and humming with mechadendrites, they boarded the Noctis Requiem like Carian priests, chanting praises to the Omnissiah. Their leader, Magos Dravik, approached me with reverent hesitation. "Your armor," he rasped through his vox grill, "does not conform to any pattern of Astartes construction. It predates Mars, it is anomalous." I said nothing. He reached toward my pauldron with a servo claw, and the armor growled. The sound was deep, mechanical, animal. The Magos froze, optics flickering. "It speaks," he whispered. "Machine spirits do not speak so." I leaned closer. "Then perhaps it isn't one." He recoiled, and I saw terror flash through the red lenses. For a moment I pitied him. Then I remembered what the Mechanicum had done, binding men to metal, calling it salvation. No one in this galaxy knew how to live without a master. We were ordered to dock at the forge world of Oristhal for purification. But as we approached, the warp shifted. I felt it long before the ship's astropaths began to scream. The stars around us twisted, their light stretched into crimson ribbons. The ship trembled, systems flickering. Then came the voice, not from outside, but from within every vox, every cogitator, every beating heart aboard. "He is awake." The words rippled through the ship like blood through veins. The Night Lords panicked, firing at shadows, their laughter cracking into fear. I felt the armor tighten around me, locking, protecting. "He breathes beneath the throne." The same words from the halo, now echoing everywhere. The machine spirit whispered to me in binary, too fast for thought. It was guiding the ship, steering us away from Oresthal. Through the warp's storms, through screaming constellations, it drove us toward a black sun that devoured all light. We emerged above a world I had never seen on any chart, a dying sphere of stone and metal orbiting the singularity. Its surface shimmered with rivers of molten iron, its skies heavy with auroras of blood. "Where are we?" one of the Night Lords asked. The vox crackled. "Where you began," the ship answered in my voice. We descended. The planet was silent, yet not dead. Ruins covered the plains, temples built from obsidian and bone, their walls engraved with symbols that bent the eye. As we walked, I realized the carvings were familiar. They told stories of a war older than the Imperium, older than the Force. Two brothers of light and shadow, locked in eternal conflict. One forged worlds through compassion, the other through order. Both fell. Both became gods. At the end of the hall stood a monolith of black glass reflecting only me. I reached out. The reflection reached back, but it smiled. "You've come far," it said, voice smooth as oil. So many chains broken only to forge new ones. The image stepped forward, emerging from the glass as mist solidified into armor, flesh, and hate. It was me, unscarred, unbound, Anakin Skywalker. His eyes burned not with rage but pity. "You still believe you're a monster," he said. "But monsters serve purpose. You're a prisoner of it." I raised my blade, red light staining the ruins. "You are a ghost," I said. "A lie made of regret." He smiled. "And you are a dream made of fear." Then he struck. No blade, no motion, just will. The air imploded. My armor convulsed as the dark side surged through the warp, merging, twisting. I struck back, every wound I'd ever given reflected upon me. The world cracked. The molten rivers turned to glass beneath our feet. The heavens screamed as two realities collided. I saw flashes of both lives, Mustafar and Makraga, Coruscant and Terra, collapsing into one another. He overpowered me not through strength, but memory. The faces of the dead, Padme, Obi-Wan, Luke, rose from the mist, each whispering my name. For a moment I faltered. Then the machine spirit spoke. "Let go of life." Breathed the machine. I obeyed. The respirator roared, drowning out all voices. My humanity burned away, leaving only the rhythm of metal lungs. The ghost recoiled, fading into ash. The reflection shattered. When the silence returned, I was alone. The world was collapsing, consumed by the singularity above. The Night Lords screamed through the Vox for extraction, but the ship was gone. Only my armor still hummed, calm, alive. "You understand now," it whispered. "The Emperor does not breathe." "You do." I fell to my knees as the planet began to tear itself apart. Around me, the ruins ignited, lines of red fire forming sigils that stretched into the sky. The warp peeled open, revealing endless faces, all wearing my mask. I had thought myself cursed by rebirth, yet now I saw the truth. I was not transported across galaxies. I was the bridge between them. The dark side had not died with me. It had bled into the warp, infecting this universe like a virus of order and hate. I had become the link, the echo of tyranny that binds all empires. My armor cracked, molten light spilling from the seams. The machine spirit's voice merged with mine until I could no longer tell us apart. "There is no death," we said together. "Only power." When the planet finally imploded, I did not die. I became breath, sound, gravity, the pulse of the black sun. The Noctis Requiem reappeared days later, drifting near the event horizon. The Night Lords who survived swore they heard my breathing through the Vox, echoing across every deck. Some claimed to see me standing on the observation bay, haloed in crimson light. Others said the ship itself now breathed, its hull expanding and contracting like lungs. Perhaps both were true. I no longer cared. I was no longer man, nor Astartes, nor Sith. I was the silence between stars, the will that refuses to die. And in the endless dark, I whispered to the void, "Tell your Emperor I am coming." The Noctis Requiem drifted for weeks through the event horizon's aftershock, engines lifeless, its crew praying to deaf gods. The Night Lords who survived the implosion had changed. Some spoke in tongues, others carved spirals into their armor, chanting about the breathing star. Those who didn't pray simply laughed until their throats tore. The ship's machine spirits whispered in binary hymns, echoing my rhythm. I felt their fear, their reverence. They could not see me, yet they felt me in every vibration of metal. I had become the breath of the vessel, the voice of its hunger. But there was a pulse in the dark, faint yet familiar, a beacon of the Imperium, calling across the void. It bore the sigil of the Inquisition. They had come for the Noctis Requiem. Their ship was vast, a cathedral of adamantine, shaped like a sword driven through a planet, the cruciform Judicant. Its Vox hailed us, demanding response, invoking the Emperor's authority. I answered. "Your Emperor breathes," I said through static. "Would you hear him?" Silence followed, then panic. Their astropaths began screaming before the first boarding torpedo even struck. I felt their presence as insects crawling through the hull, purity seals fluttering, their rosarius amulets glowing faintly in the dead corridors. I did not stop them. Let them come. Let them see what faith looked like when it decayed into truth. They entered the grand hall first, a chamber once used for sermons, now littered with corpses that prayed even in death. The air tasted like rust and incense. Their leader was an inquisitor in silver power armor, her face hidden behind a veil of transparent adamantium. "By order of the Golden Throne," she declared, "you are bound for judgment." Her voice trembled beneath the weight of ritual courage. I spoke from every wall, every console, every flickering lumen. I was already judged. She raised her weapon, a blessed plasma caster, and fired. The bolt melted a pillar, but the air screamed as if wounded. "Do you think light obeys your faith?" I asked. She looked around, trying to locate me. The sound of breathing filled the chamber. Not human, not machine, both. The Night Lords appeared from the shadows, their armor warped, their visors pulsing with crimson light. They bowed as one toward the center of the hall where molten air condensed into form. Mine. I stepped forth, half shadow, half machine. My cape of ashes dragged across the ground, leaving trails of smoke. The Inquisitor's retinue opened fire. Bolter shells screamed, purity seals ignited, and psychers unleashed the Emperor's name like a weapon. I answered with silence. The bolts hung in midair, frozen. The psychic flames guttered out, devoured by a vacuum of will. "He is not dead," I said. "He is dreaming. You breathe because he remembers how." The Inquisitor's weapon lowered, trembling. "You blaspheme." "No," I replied. "I remember." I walked toward her, and as I did, her mind opened like a door. I saw everything. Her years in the Schola Progenium, her faith in the Emperor's perfection, her fear of dying unseen, and beneath it all, the tiny, silent thought she dared never speak. What if he never wakes? I whispered it aloud. She fell to her knees, horror flooding her face. "Who are you?" she asked. I reached out and touched her helm, the breath he forgot to take. Her visor cracked, and through the split I saw her eyes, wide, terrified, yet yearning. The moment she looked upon me fully, her soul burned away. Her body slumped forward, empty, but her shadow remained kneeling. The Inquisitors who survived fled back to their ship, but the cruciform Judicant did not move. The Noctis Requiem reached for it with tendrils of living metal, binding hull to hull, merging the two into one monstrous cathedral. The stars dimmed as the fusion completed. I stood at the confluence of both vessels, gazing into the vast chamber of the Judicant's main shrine. Golden statues of the Emperor towered over me, eyes blind, hands raised in eternal benediction. The machine spirit whispered, "He sits still, but he breathes through you." The thought was intoxicating and terrifying. Was I his extension or his replacement? The distinction was thinning, like the barrier between warp and flesh. I approached the altar. Upon it lay a relic, the throne fragment, said to have been chipped from the golden seat itself. It pulsed faintly, alive. I reached down, pressing my armored hand upon it. The world fell away. For an instant I saw Terra, not as it was, but as it truly existed. The golden throne throbbed like a dying heart, its veins of energy wrapping around a corpse of unimaginable size. Tubes and wires pierced his flesh, draining light into the warp. And I heard it again, that faint rhythmic sound. Breathing. Not from the Emperor, but from beneath him. Something buried within the throne, deeper than any Mechanicus priest had ever dared explore. Something older. The vision shattered. I staggered back, smoke rising from my gauntlet. The fragment was gone, absorbed into my armor. The machine spirit's voice deepened, now almost identical to mine. "He was not first," it said. "He is the seal upon the wound." The air around me rippled with power, the shadows of both ships bending toward me like trees in a storm. I understood then, I had not been brought here by accident. I was being prepared for the unsealing of something the Emperor himself had buried. The remaining Night Lords fell to their knees. "Lord Vader," one murmured. "What now?" I looked out into the void. In the distance, Terra burned faintly like an ember. My voice came as a whisper of thunder. "We go home." Terra was no longer gold. From orbit, the planet resembled a dying ember, its continents fractured by endless bombardments, its hive cities choked by the smoke of millennia of faith. The sky was aflame with the ghosts of orbital defenses, their fire like the sighs of dying angels. As the Noctis Requiem descended through the polluted clouds, my armor whispered prayers it had learned from the Mechanicus, but every word felt hollow. Beneath us lay the heart of an empire built on rot and silence. The Astronomicon still pulsed faintly through the warp, a beacon made of agony, but I could feel the truth behind it now. It was not the Emperor's light. It was his scream. The Custodes met us in orbit, golden giants descending upon our ship with halos of fire. They did not ask who we were. They already knew. The moment their gaze touched me, their souls recoiled. One stepped forward, his voice like thunder breaking through a cathedral. "You do not belong here, abomination." His halberd glowed with the Emperor's blessing, his presence burning against the dark force that bled from me. I should have destroyed him. Instead, I looked upon his face, perfect, unwavering, sculpted in faith, and felt envy. He still believed. I remembered what it was like to believe. "I was chosen once too," I said. My voice echoed through the void, resonant with the hum of the ship. "By a god who also demanded obedience." His expression did not change. "The Emperor is no god. Then why do you kneel?" I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation was all I needed. With a motion faster than sound, I raised my hand and drew the warp itself into focus. Lightning cascaded through the void, a chain of violet flame that wrapped around his form, shattering his armor like glass. He did not scream. He only whispered, "Forgive us." As his body dissolved into ash, I felt the tremor ripple across the custodian fleet. They knew what had come for them. They were not prepared for a god who still remembered how to hate. We breached the atmosphere, plunging through the clouds into the endless labyrinth of the Imperial Palace. The air shimmered with psychic pressure, like walking through the lungs of something alive. The Night Lords followed me in silence, their wings tattered, their eyes glowing with cold reverence. The gates of the Sanctum Imperialis loomed ahead, taller than mountains, carved with scenes of conquest and sacrifice. They opened for us without command. The machine spirits of Terra knew me now. They remembered the breathing. Inside, the world changed. Light turned viscous, sound warped. Millions of Imperial pilgrims knelt upon the floors, their mouths moving in eternal prayer. Their skin had fused to the marble, their bones turned to crystal by centuries of radiation. The air was thick with the scent of sanctified decay. Choirs of servitors chanted hymns without voices, their throats replaced by vox emitters. As I walked among them, their eyes rolled back, and for the first time in eons, they inhaled. The sound echoed like thunder across the chamber. The Emperor's breath. Through me, the Eternity Gate awaited, guarded by the 10,000. They did not attack. They only watched as I approached, as if witnessing a prophecy written before their creation. I paused before them. "He calls," I said softly. "Can you not hear it?" Their Primus Custodian raised his spear, trembling. "If he breathes, it is in pain. You are the cause of that pain." "No," I whispered. "I am the pain." The gate opened. Inside, the light was unbearable. The golden throne rose like a mountain of divine machinery, its body a labyrinth of cables and flesh. Tubes thicker than titans pierced the Emperor's withered frame, pumping liquid fire through veins that glowed like molten rivers. His face was skeletal, serene, and impossibly still, but I heard it, the faint rhythm I had heard since awakening. Inhale, exhale, the galaxy's heartbeat. I fell to one knee, not in worship, but in recognition. "We are the same," I said. "Both of us prisoners of power. Both of us fathers to monsters." For the first time, the throne answered. The light around him flickered, and a voice older than matter filled the chamber, not spoken, but felt, vibrating through every molecule of reality. "You are the echo of another war." I bowed my head. "Then end me. Let me fade." "I cannot," the voice said. "You are the wound that keeps me awake." The floor split open. Beneath the throne, A vast chasm yawned, filled with red lightning and screaming shadows. I saw what lay below, the buried star, the thing that breathed before creation. It was the dark side of the Emperor's soul, chained and forgotten. I realized the truth then. I had not been pulled here by accident. I was the bridge, the unspoken half of the god he had become. The Night Lords began to chant, their voices merging with the hum of the machine. Ave Vadarian, Ave the breath of the throne. The Emperor's skeletal fingers twitched. A beam of golden fire erupted from his chest, striking me squarely. My armor ignited, my soul unraveled. The Force and the warp collided, screaming through me like colliding stars. I saw every galaxy, every death, every whispered prayer. I saw the Sith, the Jedi, the Astartes, and the Chaos Gods, all reflections of the same cosmic truth. The universe is the breath between two silences. And in that silence I found peace. When the light faded, the throne was still. The Astronomicon pulsed brighter than ever before. The custodes fell to their knees, not in worship, but in awe. I was gone, yet not gone. My armor stood before the throne, empty, its visor glowing faintly red. From within, a single breath escaped, gentle as the birth of a star. He breathes, and somewhere far beyond the veil, in the dark between galaxies, the Force whispered in the language of the warp, "There is still light in him."